knowingly making false claims is usually considered to be morally reprehensible. Lying, as it's usually called, is a bad thing. It's something that bad people do. If I were to say I don't like coffee, which is obviously false, and something that is I know to be false, I'm lying. I'm saying something wrong, right? But there is a class of statements, a class of false statements, that we commonly classify using other terminology. Terminology that has had a long history and has different uses, which are not considered to be morally reprehensible. Let me give you an example.
I used to think it didn't matter what deodorant I chose. Dumb. This test shows that Old Spice is the right choice. Old Spice performs.
Old Spice does not literally grow hair in your chest, right? Red Bull does not literally give you wings, and Ray Lewis does not literally ride interstellar ravens to blow up planets. None of these things actually happen. So why is it that when advertisements claim that they do happen, they're allowed to skate by? Why aren't these considered violations of truth in advertising law? These are, technically speaking, balderdash, we'll call it, for the moment. They are false statements which we take with a grain of salt, we take as humorous, right? These kinds of statements are particularly interesting. There's a philosopher named Harry Frankfurt. Harry Frankfurt was a professor at Columbia, and he wrote a book called On That, which you can go and look up if you would like on Amazon. In it, Harry argues that this kind of speech, which we'll call BS, is related to an activity we call a bull session. And a bull session, which is a familiar experience, especially for young men, is a case where a bunch of men sit around, usually men. There are versions of it you find in the female community as well. Sit around and try to one-up each other rhetorically with greater and greater tales of personal achievement related to fishing or athletics or romance, right? These are tales that nobody takes to be true. Everyone in the group knows on some level that these tales are false. The goal, then, is not to provide information or convey information. The goal is social cohesion. The goal is some sort of belonging to the tribe. And in fact, it's the very not pointing out that these things are false that is the test of character that lets you belong to the tribe. So while Frankfurt goes on to argue that we'll call him BSer, the prattlist, the person who continues to produce hot air, is morally reprehensible more than the liar, because the liar at least seems to respect the truth and deviate from that. The BSer doesn't know anything about the truth. The BSer merely spins, merely is interested in the relation of the narrative and not in its corresponds to actual information. Well, I think that's right. Well, I think Harry's onto something. The real concern I have in the BS communities is this implicit appeal to character. It's the way that people use BS to belong to a certain group. And so we can then define groups, and we can look at how communities go about their orchestration of what we might call veridicality, their orchestration of how we consider certain statements to be true and certain statements to not be worthy of judging as being true or not. Those are statements that we'll call flamdoodle. This category of statements, which I'm trying not to name using the regular name, this category of statements, we say are statements where the intent of the speaker is not to convey information, but rather to achieve some social end, right? The statement cannot be judged as being true or false. That's the wrong criteria for judging it. The statement merely is judged on whether or not it allows you membership into the group that you're seeking membership in. And there's all sorts of groups that we can analyze using this kind of technique. And that's what we'll be doing in my class. I'm Dr. Peter Bradley. I teach philosophy here. And my class is Identifying and Avoiding BS. Thank you very much.